Been a topsy-turvy season across college football, and the SEC's at the forefront of all that. And now we're looking at showdown Saturday of sorts here in Week 8. Got our guy Chris Phillips on the line from SEC Unfiltered. That's the stop for all your SEC football takes. Chris, appreciate you being here.
Mark, always a pleasure, man. Appreciate you having me on. And yeah, it's got to be the craziest college football season since 2007. I feel like that's the last one where it felt like every single week we're just seeing these unexpected results and top teams going down. And certainly to your point, Mark, you look at this slate moving forward, we're kind of past the point in the season where we don't have any more bad matchups necessarily or quote unquote sleepy Saturdays. It's separation Saturday, what feels like every week. And certainly that's the case this upcoming weekend.
I started counting double-digit upsets at the beginning of the season, and I've lost track. I need to get back on that. But shoot, Vandy, let's give Vandy some love. They're responsible for 3 double-digit upsets just by themselves. So got to take some time and look at what Vandy's been able to accomplish. Not the worst team in the SEC, and that's a team you don't want any part of.
Not with Diego Pavia at quarterback. He's been the game changer for them. I mean, he's the leader of that football team. I think he's completely changed the mentality of that football team. Give Clark Lee a lot of credit, Mark. I mean, I think you could make an argument. We'll see what happens rest of the season. But he's on a path to win SEC Coach of the Year. Like, if we're being honest about, like, what he's got to work with and the resources or lack thereof and, to bring the guys in necessary to do what they've done. I mean, you beat Alabama and then you follow it up. I thought was an incredible challenge, Mark, for them. They've been hearing all week about how great they are and beating Alabama, and it was like, are they going to be focused on Kentucky? And I picked Vanderbilt to win that football game. I felt like just, with the mentality of a Diego Pavia, they'd go in there and be focused, and sure enough, they were. Vandy is certainly not even close to the worst team in the SEC this year, which is just kind of goes to show how crazy 2024 has been.
And it's been so crazy that the team that I have picked as the worst team of the last several weeks, Mississippi State, is actually showing up and playing some decent football against some of the better teams, Texas, Georgia. So let's get to this week's matchups, and we'll go there to Austin for the big one. And this is a matchup that all the odds makers during the offseason had substantially on the Georgia side. But as Georgia has faltered, of course, the Alabama game, the Kentucky showing, and not been the dominant Georgia team, especially in the defensive side, while Texas has continued to just maul people. And, Oklahoma has all sorts of issues on the offensive side of the ball, but still that's a top 10 or 15 defense in the country, and Texas just annihilated them, where it seems to have flipped in regards to Texas being the favorite here and Georgia needing to prove something.
Yeah, Mark, Georgia struggled. I think that, you look, they're banged up, right? Tate Ratledge still out on the offensive line. They might be without their center, Jared Wilson, as well. Might have to slide Drew Bobo over to center and, make that work on the offensive front. Defensively, too, a little bit banged up there. What is Michael Williams' status? And they just haven't been what we expect from a Georgia defense. I mean, outside of Malachi Starks, I don't know who you look at as a big play guy who's a surefire NFL draft pick. I mean, I know they still got players, don't get me wrong, but up to the Kirby Smart standard, they just haven't lived up to it. And you look at Texas, Mark, I mean, again, they are the most right now. I say right now because as we've seen in college football, things can change rather quickly. They're the most complete team in college football right now, Mark. I think that goes without saying. So I like Texas in this game. I like Texas by double digits, Mark, believe it or not. I had the question over the summer of, hey, especially when they lost a couple of their running backs, when it comes to physicality, this is going to be the game we're going to see. Can Texas, are they man enough to go win a game like this? I think they're more than man enough to do so. And I think I question more so now, I question Georgia. Are they going to be able to take the punches from Texas? I mean, if you want to say, however, this is going to be Texas's most stiff, it's going to be their biggest test of the season. But I look at Texas again. They're so well-rounded. Again, they're one of the best defenses in the country. Maybe in their secondary, they could be susceptible to some deep shots. This is a huge game, too, Mark, for Carson Beck. Carson Beck looking for that signature win. I feel like in his career, he can certainly – I mean, we talked about it over the summer. Like, he's going to have the opportunities to show he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. The stage is set for him yet again. He'll have to play 2 complete halves, unlike what he did in Tuscaloosa on the road. But I like Texas in this game. And again, I got them 38-27 winning this football game. I feel like Texas right now, again, they're the most complete team in the country. They're playing the best football, and I think Georgia is playing too much of mistake-riddled football to go on the road at night against a team like Hookham and get the win.
Yeah, Georgia, an underdog for the first time in forever. And to your point, they've had any championship team. You've got to go back to the mid 90s, Nebraska, where a team has just pummeled everyone for the entire season. I think the figure was by at least 17 points. Everybody has those letdown spots. Mm-hmm. But when those letdown spots are repeated, like these Georgia championship teams of 21-22, they had their Missouri game. They had a couple of those spots, but usually the championship teams have one or maybe two of those during a season, but they have yet to put together a complete game.
Yeah, at some point it just becomes who you are, Mark. It's not a one-off anymore. It's who your football team is. And I think right now, as crazy as it sounds, you could argue Georgia looks more like a 9-3 team than anything. I mean, especially with their schedule, you think about what they've got upcoming. They've still got to play Ole Miss, obviously, who I know is having their own struggles, but yeah, I mean, it's more so on the defensive side that really worries me, Mark. And, I like Texas in this game.
Tennessee, Bama get together in Knoxville, of course. They staged one of the great games in recent memory a couple of years ago when Tennessee finally beat Bama and Nick Saban for the first time in 15 years. Now they get together, and a few weeks back, Tennessee was becoming the chic pick to push the playoff in a possible national championship season. And I even gave them some, a bit of a disclaimer at Oklahoma, thinking, okay, that was just a mucked up game where Oklahoma's got a good defense and they just wanted to be conservative, get out of town. They knew Oklahoma couldn't score on them. But now we've got a couple consecutive games here where Nico Iamaleava and this Tennessee offense has not produced points. Shoot, they went the entire first half scoreless against Florida, dodged a bullet, got out of town with a win inexplicably. And so Tennessee, certainly they've got some flaws to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Mark, Nico hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in 3 weeks. I mean, you talk about a guy that's sort of reeling when it comes to his confidence. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. They've got to get him confident again. Josh Heupel and company have got to put him in positions to be successful. Nico Iamaleava is too good of a player to be playing the way he's been. We know the talent is there. It's going to click at some point, Mark. Everybody has their light bulb moment, right? Whether it's in sales, it's in podcasting, it's being a quarterback, whatever industry you're in, you have that light bulb moment where it really starts to click and you really start to hit your stride. You just hope if you're Tennessee, that light bulb moment comes on Saturday night at Neyland Stadium. That's the biggest thing. So they've got to get him back confident. Nico's going to have to play well. I think quarterback run game, Mark, is going to be a big part of this game. Which of these two quarterbacks is more willing to get outside the pocket, run the football? The best we've seen from Jalen Milroe was against Georgia when he was running the football effectively. And I think Nico can run it so much better we just haven't seen him do it. And I think Josh Heupel and company in their offensive attack got to be willing to get him outside there, let him run the football and get on the run, improvise, make some things happen with his legs to get the most out of this offense. We know the Tennessee run game is elite. We know the front seven is elite. If Nico can step up and sort of, be that piece, if he can rise to the occasion or rise to the level of those other two units I mentioned, I like Tennessee to win this football game, and I think it is the light bulb moment. I think Nico Iamaleava has a big game. I think Tennessee down to the wire in a classic wins at 31-28. I got Tennessee over the Crimson Tide.
Kalen DeBoer, after that South Carolina scare, said to the sideline reporter, "Hey, the ball wasn't bouncing. I'm proud of our guys. The ball wasn't bouncing our way." And I thought, ball wasn't bouncing your way. Yeah, maybe you were talking about that onside kick. But other than that, if Lenoris Sellers doesn't put the ball on the ground at midfield with 6-8 minutes left with a 1-score lead, South Carolina's moving the ball. Maybe they go in for a 2-score lead. I thought South Carolina outplayed Alabama for the measure of that game. And Bama continues to struggle and stumble.
Yeah, Bama's got their own issues. I tell you this, I'm starting to really question Kalen DeBoer and that coaching staff as a whole. I think Kane Womack, some of the adjustments or lack thereof they're making on the defensive side. But I mean, Kalen DeBoer, man, it's just, you got to question, does he kind of know the standard of what Alabama is? Like playing the way they've been playing over the last couple of weeks, how they played against South Carolina. I know Bama being undisciplined is not a new thing. At the end of the Saban tenure, it became a problem. But I think Kalen DeBoer is still a really good coach. I want to clarify that. But it just – we know what the expectations are in Tuscaloosa, Mark. We do. And I don't know what's happened to them the last few weeks. I don't know if something since halftime of that Georgia-Alabama game, something just hasn't clicked for them or something changed. I don't know what exactly changed, but something changed because you nearly lose that game to Georgia. You fall to Vandy. And like you said, Mark, you probably should have lost to South Carolina if Lenore Sellers can just hold on to the football. So there's big-time problems down in Tuscaloosa, man. And, again, they're going to have to be more disciplined, play a cleaner version of football. They're going to have to be able to make adjustments defensively, and Jalen Milroe is going to have to get back to his high-flying level of play if they're going to go into Knoxville and get a win.
No problems at SEC Unfiltered. They're rolling. Great stuff there with Chris and everybody else. Chris, what is the good word from SEC Unfiltered? What do you guys have on tap for us this week?
Yeah, content's bleeding out of the eyeballs, Mark. We do our game previews throughout the first half of the week. We'll have tons of guests on as well from some of the top games, just kind of breaking them down, giving you the perspective on some of the biggest games. So we'll have someone from Tennessee, someone from Alabama, someone from Texas, someone from Georgia, again, to give you the respective insights on those sides of things. We'll also kind of have some other random content. My other guys, Cole Thompson, Dave Shoemate, talking about things such as contenders and pretenders, biggest questions going into the weekend. We actually have a conversation with the great Danny Werfel dropping middle of this week as well, which will be a really good one. Danny Werfel, an SEC legend, obviously, in his own right. So, we do different live shows throughout the week as well. We do a call-in show. My friend Dave Shoemate does Dave Talks Ball. Well, he'll talk gambling picks and give you his thoughts on the weekend. So, and then, of course, we do our live reaction stuff on Saturday. So our guys will go live immediately following the biggest games of the day and give you their immediate reaction. And on Sunday mornings, Mark, we've got our Sunday Fun Day segment, which airs 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central every single Sunday morning. And please don't judge me if I look like I haven't gotten any sleep on those Sunday mornings, because with the SEC Unfiltered tour, that very well has been the case a couple of these weekends, Mark, I got to admit.
Nice. Well, that's what the off season is for, I guess. A little bit of sleep. Not
we'll
much.
We'll sleep in the off season. Yeah, we'll sleep in the off season.
How good's Texas A&M? This team's undefeated in the SEC, and the schedule is not daunting.
I think Texas A&M is a pretty good football team. It's a game like this, though, Mark, that Texas A&M has lost in the past. I'll feel really good about it if they can go into Mississippi State. Again, not a great Mississippi State team, but you made the point, Mark, that trending in the right direction, starting to heat up a little bit. Michael Van Buren starting to play some really good football. Jeff Lebby starting to get in his bag. And this is a place, house of horrors, it has been for A&M. They're 2-6 in 8 meetings in this building at Davis Wade. They've had some inexplicable losses. If Texas A&M can go and handle their business, it's not the big games, Mark, you worry about A&M showing up for. It's games like this. It's games like at South Carolina in a few weeks. But certainly, to your point, Mark, I mean, the schedule's conducive to them going on a big run to close out the season and maybe even being in the SEC championship. I think, they're as salty as anybody on the defensive side. And if the offense has the balance like we saw against Missouri with Connor Wigman under center, I mean, I think they could be a team that ends up in Atlanta come season's end.
Yeah, one of the surprising outcomes this season was not the winner of the game, but that they just handled Missouri. And I know that there were a couple of calls in that game that went against Mizzou early. They could have kept it close, but no excuses there. Texas A&M just laid waste to them. And I think that was a much different team that stepped on the field, even though they were playing good football and had notched a couple of nice wins. With Connor Wigman in the lineup, they can stretch the field. They're just a different team. The guy's got an NFL arm, and as long as they can keep him upright and healthy back there, they've got a shot against anyone. All right, Chris, let's look at this Arkansas team against LSU. Of course, the Bayou Bengals get an enormous win, trailing the entire game against Ole Miss. Ole Miss continues to shoot themselves in the foot. Left so many points on the board. One time Lane Kiffin misses a field goal, sends out the field goal kicker, which he hates to do in a goal line situation. And then the next time, of course, he reverts back to his ways, and they go for it, and they completely get blown up at the line of scrimmage. So many plays left out there in the first half in particular. They had a 10-point lead. They squander it. They lose against LSU. So now we've got an LSU team that has not looked impressive, but after they beat Ole Miss, they're in great position. They have yet to lose a game in the conference. Then they've got Arkansas. And I root for programs and teams like this. Just somebody we discounted the entire offseason. Don't need to talk about Arkansas. Sam Pittman's probably gone, and they're just a couple plays away from being undefeated.
Yeah, I mean, the big question with Arkansas in this game, Mark, for me is, and I was in the building a couple weeks ago in Fayetteville when they took down Tennessee. That was the first time all season they had really played a clean game, right? Didn't shoot themselves in the foot, didn't turn the football over specifically. My question is, are they capable of doing that again? Because if they are, they absolutely could pull this upset. I mean, I think Arkansas, it's got the perfect makings, right, Mark, of an upset, right? Team comes off an emotional home win, had to go to overtime to secure it. Now they got to go on the road for a rivalry game at night. If you look at the history of this series, the game is always close, right? Even in the victory, they were kind of sloppy. So you see a path for Arkansas to victory. Taylon Green is playing for the Hogs. He's going to be 100%. We have been told by the folks there at Arkansas. I just don't trust the Hogs to play a clean game again, to be totally transparent with you, Mark. I think LSU will be able to go on the road, get the win. I think Garrett Nussmeier will clean some things up in regards because he was so up and down. LSU as a whole, they are the most chaotic, good, bad, entertaining, hilarious to watch team I've ever seen, Mark. Again, getting a look at them in person. Again, different challenge going on the road, the battle for the Golden Boot. But I more so don't trust Arkansas to play a clean game from start to finish again. I think it'll be a close game. If you told me the winner of this game wins this game by a single score, that's what I would sort of expect. The line is 3 for a reason. I think LSU ekes out a win there in Fayetteville.
Chris Phillips, SEC Unfiltered, breaking down the SEC for us week 8. We always appreciate Chris stopping by. South Carolina, this team, Jekyll and Hyde, they had those outstanding efforts early in the season. And I thought, well, they're obviously much improved and so much better than anybody thought they were. And then Ole Miss destroys them and they only score 3 points. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, they're reverting to norm where we thought they would be as maybe a 5 or 6 win team. Then they bounce back. They don't get the win against Bama, but they outplay them. And now they go to Norman, where you got to think maybe, I don't know, the first team to 10 wins the game.
You think so? Yeah. I mean, listen, they couldn't set that over under low enough for me not to bet it, Mark. I'm on under 40.5 in that football game. I absolutely see in this being like a 17-10, 17-13 kind of game. A pair of teams that desperately need to win. I mean, you look at South Carolina, if they're going to get to that 6-6 mark, I mean, I know they'd love to get like 7-5, but if they're going to make bowl eligibility, you look down the stretch, Mark, there's a lot of opportunities to win games, but like this is one all of a sudden over the offseason, you looked at it like, man, what a daunting task going to Norman. Now, this thing is a coin flip. It's interesting too, Mark, for the third straight week, South Carolina is facing a team that is coming off of a loss that is in kind of not a get-right opportunity or a get-right spot, but is in a spot where they desperately need a win, right? They're not catching anybody napping necessarily. For Brent Venables and company, I mean, listen, man, you're in year 3. That fan base, as much as it hurts to lose to Texas, I'm sure Oklahoma fans right now can look at it and say, listen, we're just not where we need to be. Like, we're not, Texas is further along than we are right now. It's the reality. They can stomach it. I don't think Sooner fans are going to stomach losing to South Carolina on their home field very well, Mark. So I think both of these defenses can shut down the opposing offenses, and I think they will. My lean in this game, Mark, honestly, I do lean South Carolina here.
Yeah.
Now, can Lenoris Sellers take care of the football? That's the big thing. Mark, Lenoris Sellers has 7 touchdowns. He's got 10 turnovers. Like, he's got 6 fumbles on the year. He's fumbled, I think, in every single game he's played in. So can he protect the football? These past games will tell us no, and this isn't a good defense to go up against when you can't take care of the football. But, man, Oklahoma is just so inept on the offensive side. And, Mark, more importantly, they are so banged up. I mean, they just – is there a more injury-riddled team right now in college football than Oklahoma? I don't know that there is. Again, I could see this being a 13-10 game, maybe 17-14. I doubt either team gets to 20. But I think I'm going to lean South Carolina in this game, Mark, to go on the road and get the win.
So, Chris, before we let you go, where does the Billy Napier meter stand in regards to the adjustments that you've made in recent weeks? Because the Gators, you got to give them a little bit of credit for coming out with some fight after it looked like their season was completely dead. Now, the UCF win, they've shown to not be a good football team, but they go to Knoxville and they put up quite a fight. And so they're at least showing up for their coach a little bit.
Well, Mark, from what I've been told from people in Gainesville, like there was never a question of, I mean, that locker room believes in Billy Napier. They all support Billy Napier. I don't think you're going to see any quit from this Florida football team. That being said, I think he's a dead man walking. I mean, I think I'd be shocked if the decision already hasn't been made, and it's a matter of when, not if. If Billy Napier is coaching the Gators in November, Mark, I would be surprised. You've got this game against Kentucky this weekend, a game in which I am picking Kentucky to win the football game. I mean, I feel like Mark Stoops, he has coached circles around Billy Napier every time they played. And Mark, look at the game against Tennessee last week, and they had a great opportunity to win. They're making errors on special teams with too many men on the field. Again, bad play calling at times. They're making the same mistakes. I mean, they are who they are. Billy Napier is who he is, and who he is someone who should not be the coach at a place like the University of Florida. So, you've got Kentucky. Then you've got the bye week, Mark. I would not be surprised at all if Florida doesn't make that move going into the bye week.
Chris Phillips, SEC Unfiltered. That's your stop. You see all the X handles down below to follow Chris and his work right there. Chris, it's always a good conversation. Always love getting caught up on what could be next in the SEC. Double-digit underdogs have won almost every week. So, man, if that happens again this week, then look out.
Mark, appreciate you having me, man. It's always a pleasure chopping it up with you. And, yeah, looking forward to a crazy rest of the college football season.